Elias stood at the edge of the airlock, his hands gripping the cold metal rail as he watched the station's lights flicker in the distance. The low hum of machinery filled the quiet hangar bay, and somewhere far above the stars shimmered in black space. He had been here countless times before, delivering supplies, picking up cargo, and moving through the emptiness that surrounded the outer colonies. Space was quiet, sterile, and unforgiving, and yet it had a kind of peace he could never find on any crowded planet. He was about to close the airlock after a routine supply transfer when movement caught his eye. At first he thought it was a shadow, a trick of the flickering lights, but then he saw a small figure, crouched and trembling. Barely taller than the railing, its skin was pale, almost translucent, with faint glimmers that reflected the light. Its eyes were enormous, wide with fear and sadness. Elias froze. The figure spoke, but the words were broken. Strange sounds that did not match any language he knew. Still, the emotion behind them was clear: desperation, loss, pleading. His instincts, long honed from years of flying alone, told him to call security and leave it to the authorities. And yet, something stopped him. The child's small hands reached out, trembling, as if it had learned that the world was not safe. Elias felt a lump in his throat. He had seen enough loss, enough loneliness in his years among the stars to recognize the raw ache of abandonment. "Wait," he said softly. His voice carried across the hangar bay, calm but firm. The child flinched at first, then tilted its head, studying him with those huge, glimmering eyes. There was a sharp intelligence there, mingled with fear. Elias stepped closer, slowly, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I'm not going to hurt you. Just tell me your name." The child hesitated. Its voice came again, broken, fragile. "Mother, gone. Today, please." "Stay." Elias's heart tightened. He could barely breathe. He had expected the usual stranded trader, the lost refugee, the damaged shipment, but never this. Never a child who had just lost everything. The station's loudspeakers crackled. "Security teams are en route. Do not interfere with proper procedures." Elias ignored it. He could hear the child's heartbeat, or at least what sounded like a heartbeat, thumping in time with his own. His mind raced. If he followed the rules, the child would be sent to the refugee holding bay. There, it would be one among hundreds, with little food, little warmth, little chance to heal, and the child would never survive the long nights alone. "Come on," he said softly. "You don't have to go with them. Not if you don't want to." The child blinked rapidly, as if unsure whether this human meant it harm. Then it nodded, the smallest gesture, but full of trust. Elias reached down slowly, letting it climb onto the platform of the airlock. Its small body trembled against him as he guided it inside the ship. Once inside, the airlock closed, and the silence of the cabin embraced them. The child leaned against him, shivering. Its hands were cold, almost like ice, and its faint glow flickered weakly. Elias had no idea how to care for it, but instinct told him to wrap it in the blanket from the ship's storage locker. The child burrowed into the warmth, a soft sigh escaping as if relief had finally reached its fragile frame. He looked down at it, feeling the weight of the moment. This was no ordinary passenger. It had no family, no home, and no protection against the cruelty of the galaxy. Yet here it was, placing its fragile trust in a human stranger. Elias had spent his life alone, drifting through the stars, but something about this child's presence ignited a fire inside him he had not felt in years, a fierce, protective instinct. He checked the ship's systems. The engines were ready, the shields at full, and the navigation computers plotted the safest route away from the station. Pirates roamed these outer sectors, and stray ships were easy targets, especially those carrying vulnerable cargo, or a child alone in the void. Elias could not risk waiting. The station's alarms were growing louder and security forces would arrive any moment. "Hold on," he whispered to the child. "We're leaving. You're safe with me." The child's head rested against his chest. Its voice came again, soft and broken. "Please, never leave." Elias swallowed hard. He had never been a father. He had never wanted one. Yet in that moment, he realized that he could not let the child face the void alone. "Not now, not ever." He activated the ship's engines, and with a low hum, the vessel detached from the station, gliding into the endless darkness of space. Stars streaked past as they entered faster than light travel. For the first time, Elias felt the loneliness of the cabin transform into something else: responsibility, purpose, and hope. The child watched the lights outside with wide eyes, marveling at the stretching stars. Its small hand brushed against Elias's arm, a tentative gesture, and he felt an almost physical warmth spread through him. He did not know how long they would be safe, or what dangers awaited them, but for the first time in a long while he felt connected to something beyond himself. Hours passed. The child eventually relaxed, resting its head against his shoulder. Elias studied its delicate features. The faint shimmer of its skin was not just from its species. It seemed to pulse with emotion, a mirror of its feelings. It had lost its mother, its home, and its world. Yet it still reached out, seeking connection. Elias realized he had been alone in the void not because he wanted to be, but because he had not yet found someone, or something, worth protecting. He checked the ship's long-range sensors. Nothing followed them so far, though the sector was notorious for pirate activity. They had escaped the station, but the universe was vast, and dangers were many. He needed a plan, a safe place to take the child. The nearest human outpost, with the means to protect refugees, was hundreds of light years away. The journey would be long, filled with hazards, but there was no other choice. As he plotted their course, the child stirred, lifting its head. Its eyes met his, luminous and searching. "Stay?" it asked again, voice small and tremulous. Elias smiled, a rare, weary smile that touched the corners of his tired eyes. "Yes," he said firmly. "You can stay. With me. Forever if you want." The child's lips curled slightly, a faint glimmer of a smile breaking through its grief. For the first time, it felt a trace of hope. The stars outside stretched endlessly, but within the cabin of Elias's ship, a fragile sanctuary existed. They were alone in the universe, yet together. Night turned into the simulated day cycle of the ship, and Elias watched the child sleep, its small chest rising and falling steadily. He thought about what had brought them here: loss, chance, and perhaps something more. The universe was indifferent, cruel even. But in the midst of its darkness, a human and a child from another world had found each other. Elias could not say what lay ahead: pirates, political forces, the unknown perils of deep space. All could threaten them. But for now, in this quiet moment, he knew one thing. He would protect this child, not out of duty, not for reward, but because it mattered. Because sometimes in a galaxy of cold stars and endless voids, the simple act of caring was the most human thing of all. Hours passed, and the child murmured in its sleep, fragments of memories, perhaps of its mother, drifting into the small cabin. Elias held the blanket tighter around it, feeling the fragile life against his chest. He allowed himself a moment of vulnerability, a sigh that spoke of loneliness finally giving way to purpose. He had been a lone pilot for years, drifting without connection. Now he had someone to care for, someone whose future depended on him. And he would not fail. The ship cruised quietly through space, lights dimmed, engines steady, carrying them both away from danger, but deeper into the unknown. And for the first time in his life, Elias did not feel the cold emptiness of space. He felt warmth. Somewhere beyond the stars, in the silent reaches of the galaxy, a bond had formed, fragile, untested, yet undeniable. A human had promised safety to a child who had nothing left, and the child had placed its trust entirely in him. It was a small act, yet it was enough. It was the beginning of a journey neither of them could have foreseen, a journey that would test courage, loyalty, and the very essence of humanity. Elias leaned back in the captain's chair, eyes on the endless stars ahead. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "We'll make it, I promise." The child stirred once more, nestling closer, a soft glow of trust radiating from it. And in that quiet cabin, among the stars and silence, hope was born. Elias adjusted the ship's controls, feeling the gentle vibration of the engines beneath his hands. The cabin was quiet, except for the child's soft breathing. It had curled up on the bench, with the blanket pulled tightly around its small frame. Despite the calm, Elias could not shake the unease crawling along his spine. They were traveling through deep space, away from the station, away from immediate danger. But the universe was full of threats he could not always see. He studied the child, who occasionally peeked at him with wide, curious eyes. Its small hands fidgeted with the edge of the blanket, and its glow, faint but steady, reflected the faint lights of the control panels. Elias tried to guess how much it understood, how much it could feel. He had learned a few things from observing it. It seemed to sense danger more acutely than most beings, and its emotions were almost tangible, radiating like warmth in the room. "Do you understand me?" he asked softly. The words felt awkward, heavy, but necessary. The child tilted its head. Its voice was a quiet whisper, almost musical. "Little, safe, now?" Elias nodded. "Yes." "You're safe. I won't let anyone hurt you." For a moment, the child relaxed again, leaning back and closing its eyes. Elias watched it, feeling a connection stronger than anything he had known before. He had spent years alone in the void, and yet here was a small creature trusting him completely, asking nothing but his presence. He had a strange, protective warmth swelling inside him, a feeling he hadn't felt since long before he had begun wandering among the stars. Hours passed as he navigated through sectors known for their quiet patrols. He had chosen a longer route, avoiding main shipping lanes and pirate territories. He checked the long-range sensors periodically. Nothing had appeared. No ships, no signals, no anomalies. For a brief moment, relief filled him. But it was fragile, like the fragile glow of the child beside him. "Do you have a name?" Elias asked. The child's small face scrunched in concentration.
"Mother, called Leary," it said finally.
The sound was awkward, broken. But it carried meaning. Leary. It was a name filled with memory, loss, and love. Elias repeated it softly, letting it roll over his tongue. "Leary, it's a good name. You like it?" The child nodded slowly, a faint glow pulsing from its skin in response. Elias smiled. "Then it's yours, Leary." Silence returned to the cabin, filled only with the gentle hum of the engines. Elias's mind wandered. He wondered about the pirates who had destroyed the child's home, about the convoy that had been wiped out, and about the fragile life now trusting him completely. Leary had survived something unimaginable, and now its fate rested in his hands. That thought made his chest tighten. He could not fail. Not now. As night fell in the ship's artificial cycle, Elias prepared a small meal. Leary watched him, curious but hesitant. He offered a portion, carefully observing its reaction. The child sniffed, then tasted, and Elias let out a quiet sigh of relief. It ate slowly, carefully, as if unsure whether it was allowed to take something for itself. "You have to eat," Elias said gently. You need strength. Leary's eyes met his. The unspoken connection between them deepened. Elias realized that the child's trust was growing, that it was beginning to rely on him not just for safety, but for guidance, for comfort, for stability. The weight of that responsibility pressed on him, but it did not scare him. Somehow it made him feel alive. The calm did not last. As they passed through a particularly dark sector, the ship's sensors flickered. Elias frowned, leaning closer. A blip appeared on the radar, a fast-moving signal approaching from behind. He tensed, heart rate quickening. Pirates. Leary stirred beside him, its small hands pressing against the console. Elias felt its fear sharp and immediate. He placed a steady hand on its shoulder. "It's okay. I've got you," he whispered. The approaching vessel moved faster, closing in. Elias assessed their options. The cargo ship was no match for a pirate frigate in a direct confrontation. They could try to outrun it, but the pirates' engines were stronger, faster. His only chance was to use the terrain, asteroid fields, debris, anything to their advantage. "Stay close," he said to Leary, guiding it toward a safer part of the cabin. Its small hands gripped his arm tightly, and he felt the warmth of its trust anchor him in the moment. He activated the ship's manual override, preparing for evasive maneuvers. The pirates opened fire. Red beams sliced through space, striking nearby asteroids, sending small fragments tumbling into the void. Elias dodged expertly, weaving through the debris. The child's glow pulsed brighter, as if sensing the danger and reacting instinctively. Elias realized then that Leary's abilities were more than emotional. They were a form of telepathic empathy, a way to influence the world subtly through feeling. It was small, faint, but it helped him sense danger before his instruments could detect it. He gritted his teeth. "We're going to make it," he said firmly, more to himself than to Leary. "Just trust me." Hours passed in a tense dance. Elias used every trick he knew, spiraling through asteroid belts, doubling back through gravitational pulls, and using the debris to mask their escape. Leary stayed close, its tiny hand on his arm, its presence a steady reminder of why he fought. Finally, the pirates gave up the chase, or so it seemed. Elias slowed the engines, letting the ship drift for a moment. Leary sat on the bench, shivering slightly, but unharmed. Elias exhaled, feeling the tension release in a wave. "We're safe for now," he said. "You did great." The child tilted its head, its eyes wide with wonder and relief.
"Safe with you?" it asked.
Elias smiled, exhausted but warm. "Yes, Leary. With me, always, if you want." The journey continued, long and slow. Elias taught Leary small routines, how to monitor the ship's systems, how to prepare basic meals, how to understand the blinking lights and hums of the engines. Leary learned quickly, its curiosity boundless. But more than learning, it watched Elias, absorbing his presence, his choices, his instincts. It was learning what it meant to feel safe, to belong, to trust. As days passed, the bond deepened. Leary began to communicate more clearly, forming simple sentences, pointing out objects, expressing needs. Its telepathic sense grew stronger, a quiet pulse that Elias could feel if he focused. At first it startled him, but he learned to recognize it as guidance, a subtle link between their minds. He realized that Leary was not just a child. It was a partner in survival, a beacon of hope and connection. One evening, as the artificial sun dimmed, Elias and Leary sat together in the observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass, distant suns casting faint glows. Leary's small hand reached out, touching Elias's arm. "Home?" it asked softly. Elias smiled, thinking of the distant outpost, the nearest place where humans and aliens coexisted safely. "We'll make a home," he said. "Somewhere we can both be safe." The child nodded, curling closer. Elias could feel its heartbeat, or the echo of it, pulsing through the shared connection. He realized then that home was not a place, but a bond, a promise, a feeling of safety and belonging. And for the first time in his life he understood what that truly meant. But danger was never far away. Sensors picked up faint erratic signals in the distance. Traces of other ships moving in the sector, possibly pirates still searching for survivors. Elias tightened his grip on the controls, ready for whatever came next. Leary pressed closer, sensing the tension, and Elias whispered again, "I'll keep you safe, no matter what." In that quiet cabin, drifting through the endless void, two unlikely companions forged a bond stronger than fear or loneliness. One was a human, alone for years, hardened by the emptiness of space. The other was a child, bereft of family and home, fragile yet strong in its own way. Together they learned to rely on each other, to trust, and to hope. The universe beyond remained vast, cold, and dangerous, but within the small ship, warmth and life thrived. Elias glanced at Leary, seeing the faint shimmer of trust and hope in its eyes. He knew challenges lay ahead: pirates, distance, scarcity, and the unknown. But he also knew that they would face them together. For now, that was enough. For now, in the midst of a galaxy indifferent to pain or loss, Elias had found something worth fighting for. And Leary had found someone who would never let it face the void alone. As the ship sailed further into the stars, Elias whispered softly, almost as if speaking to the stars themselves, "We'll make it, Leary, together." And the child, nestled against him, pulsed faintly with light, as if affirming the promise. Together, they would navigate the dangers of space, and together they would survive. Elias had learned to navigate the void with precision, but even he knew that luck could only carry him so far. The faint blip on the sensors had grown into a cluster of signals. Pirate ships, fast and lethal, were converging on their position. Elias adjusted the shields, checked the weapons systems, and tightened his grip on the controls. Leary pressed against his side, small hands clutching the blanket, eyes wide with fear. "They're coming," Elias said softly, more to steady himself than to inform the child. Leary's glow pulsed in response, quickening as though it could sense the approaching danger, even before the instruments did. Elias had no illusions. Their ship was not built for combat. It was a cargo vessel, sturdy but slow, designed for moving supplies, not for outrunning or fighting a fleet of pirates. But retreating in a straight line would be suicide. He would have to rely on skill, cunning, and instinct, and maybe, he thought quietly, on the strange bond he shared with Leary. The first red beams streaked past the cockpit, striking asteroids nearby and scattering fragments into the void. Elias weaved through them, angling the ship to use the debris as cover. Leary's hand rested on his arm, and for a moment he felt a faint warmth, a reassurance that he was not alone in this fight. He had never imagined that protecting someone could feel like both a weight and a shield. But now every pulse of the child's tiny body seemed to sharpen his senses. "Stay low," Elias said, guiding Leary toward a safer area of the cabin. "You'll be okay. Trust me." The pirates opened fire again. Their beams hit the hull with deafening clangs, shaking the cabin. Sparks flew from exposed conduits. Elias twisted the controls, dodging, diving, spiraling around floating rocks. Leary's glow brightened, flickering like a signal to him, guiding him through gaps and narrow spaces. It was as if the child could sense the safest path through the chaos. Elias's mind raced. He calculated angles, gravities, and velocities, all while keeping one eye on the pirate ships closing in from behind. He was a human, alone in the void, with a small alien child depending on him. And yet he felt a strange surge of confidence. He would not let them win. One pirate frigate surged ahead, trying to cut them off. Elias's ship was nimble in short bursts, and he darted toward a narrow corridor between two massive asteroids. The pirate tried to follow, but it clipped a fragment, losing momentum. Elias allowed himself a brief, satisfied breath. Leary glanced at him, eyes shining as though sensing his relief. But the reprieve was short. Another pirate ship appeared on the sensors, approaching from a different angle. Elias gritted his teeth. They were surrounded, and options were running out. He glanced at Leary. "We have to fight," he said quietly. The child's glow intensified, a flicker of determination mingled with fear. Elias understood. Leary was not just a passenger. It was part of the struggle now. Its telepathic sense, its awareness of danger, could help them survive. Elias activated the ship's emergency weapon systems, a few automated turrets that could target and fire at approaching threats. He used every trick he knew: laser bursts timed to ricochet off asteroids, decoy signals to confuse sensors, and sudden maneuvers to throw off the pirate's aim. Leary's tiny hand brushed against a control panel, and for a moment, a pulse of the child's energy seemed to sync with the ship's systems, enhancing their targeting accuracy in a subtle, almost magical way. The pirates were relentless. Their shots struck the hull again and again, and alarms blared. Sparks danced along the walls. The cabin shook, throwing Elias against the console. But he held on. Leary pressed closer, whispering fragmented words. "Safe. Now. Fight." Elias felt the weight of responsibility like never before. He was not fighting for glory, or for cargo, or for rules. He was fighting for life. For Leary. For the fragile trust between them. Hours seemed to stretch into an eternity. Elias twisted and turned through the asteroid field, barely avoiding collisions. The child's guidance pulsed faintly, always ahead of the sensors, always leading him through safe corridors. It was exhausting, terrifying, and exhilarating all at once. He realized something fundamental. The child's presence had awakened something in him, a raw, human courage he had not felt in years. He was no longer a lone pilot drifting through space. He was a guardian. One pirate ship managed to flank them, coming in fast from behind. Elias had to act quickly. He remembered a dense cluster of asteroids ahead. If he could lure the ship into it, the pirates would have no room to maneuver. With careful calculations, he adjusted the ship's trajectory and accelerated. The pirate vessel followed, confident it could catch them. But as it entered the asteroid cluster, beams struck rocks that fragmented and ricocheted unpredictably. The pirate ship collided with debris, sending out sparks and alarm signals. Elias didn't pause. He weaved through the rocks, narrowly avoiding collisions, and used the chaos to create distance. Leary's glow pulsed stronger, almost cheering him on. The child's small face looked up at him with wonder and trust. Elias felt a warmth in his chest he had not felt in years. Every risk, every danger, every heartbeat was worth this, worth protecting life that depended on him. Yet, the danger was not over. Another pirate vessel appeared on the sensors, faster and more aggressive than the others. Elias tightened his jaw. He had no choice. They could not outrun this one. He would have to stand his ground. He turned the ship deliberately, exposing its front to the pirates' fire. At first, he feared it was suicide. But then he did something he had never done before. He engaged in a daring tactic, flying directly toward the pirate vessel. While triggering automated decoys and firing the ship's limited weapons, he aimed to disable the pirate engines rather than destroy the crew. The plan was risky. Beams struck the hull, and the cabin shook violently. Leary screamed, clutching his arm. Elias whispered, "It's okay, Leary. Trust me, we'll be fine." He maneuvered with precision, and with a final burst of speed, he collided just enough to damage the pirate ship's engines without destroying it. Sparks and smoke erupted from the vessel, and it drifted helplessly into the void. Elias exhaled slowly, exhaustion flooding him. He checked the sensors. No immediate threats. The remaining pirates had retreated. For now, they were safe. Leary looked up at him, eyes wide, glow fading to a soft pulse. Safe. Now, it whispered. Elias smiled, though his face was streaked with sweat and soot. Yes, Leary. Safe, for now.
You did amazing. We did it together.
The child's small hand reached for his, and Elias took it gently. It was not just relief in that gesture. It was trust, admiration, and a bond forged in the chaos of survival. He realized then that the child had not only guided him, but had also strengthened him. Leary had awakened something deep inside him, the courage to fight, the will to protect, and the realization that life, no matter how small or fragile, was worth defending. Hours passed in the aftermath. Elias checked the ship for damage. The hull was scratched, minor conduits exposed, but the engines were still operational. Leary sat quietly beside him, its head resting on his shoulder, glowing softly. The child had been brave beyond its size, and Elias felt a surge of pride and love. He had been alone in the void for so long, drifting through space without purpose. Now he had a reason to fight, a life to protect, and a companion who trusted him completely. Elias plotted a course for the nearest human outpost, one known for sheltering refugees and survivors. It was still a long journey, but the immediate danger had passed. As the ship glided through the endless expanse, he glanced at Leary. The child's small eyes met his, and for the first time, Elias allowed himself to smile, without restraint. "You are incredible today," he said softly. "I couldn't have done it without you." Leary's glow pulsed warmly, a small nod of acknowledgement. It was a silent promise. They would face the dangers of the universe together. They were no longer just a human and a lost child. They were a team bound by trust, courage, and the unspoken understanding that survival depended on connection. As the stars stretched endlessly outside the observation window, Elias felt a sense of calm return. The universe remained vast, cold, and full of dangers, but he no longer faced it alone. He had Leary, and together they could navigate the void. Together they could survive, grow, and perhaps even find a home. Elias leaned back in the captain's chair, hands still holding Leary's small ones. "We'll make it," he whispered. "No matter what comes, we'll make it." The child's glow pulsed in agreement, soft and steady, like a heartbeat that synchronized with his own. The pirates were gone for now, but the galaxy was far from safe. Yet Elias knew, without a doubt, that he could face anything. With Leary by his side, he was no longer just a lone pilot. He was a guardian, a protector, and a human capable of extraordinary courage. And somewhere deep in the stars, the bond they had forged in chaos, fear, and survival grew stronger, ready to face whatever the universe would throw at them next. Elias kept his eyes on the glowing navigation console, tracing the path to the human outpost that promised safety. The journey had been long, fraught with danger, but the worst was behind them. Still, he did not let his guard down. Space could be unpredictable, and the galaxy was never truly kind to those traveling alone. Leary sat beside him, small hands fidgeting with the edge of the blanket. The child's glow had settled into a calm pulse, a quiet rhythm that matched the steady hum of the ship's engines. After the pirate encounter, Leary had remained unusually silent, lost in thought, or perhaps processing everything that had happened. Elias could not blame it. They had faced death together, and the memories of fear and chaos lingered. "Almost there," Elias said, softly, more to reassure himself than Leary. He adjusted the ship's thrusters, aligning the course toward the outpost. The distant glow of the human colony appeared on the sensors, a cluster of lights suspended in the void, warm compared to the cold stars surrounding it. Leary's voice, hesitant and soft, broke the silence. "Home?" Elias smiled, his heart tightening. "Yes, Leary, this will be your home, and mine if you want it to be." The child tilted its head, large eyes shimmering with a mixture of hope and fear. Elias reached over, taking its small hand in his. We've made it this far. Now we finish the journey together." As they approached the outpost, the station's automated defenses scanned them carefully, their sensors probing for threats. Humans rarely saw alien passengers this close, and a child alone traveling with a human was unusual. A warning signal flashed briefly on the control panel, indicating that the station would hold them for inspection. Elias prepared for questions, knowing he would have to explain the presence of Leary. When the docking clamps engaged and the airlock opened, Elias guided Leary carefully onto the station. The child's small feet barely made a sound on the metallic floor. The warm lights of the station contrasted sharply with the dark, cold void outside. Leary paused, looking around at the bustling activity, humans of all shapes and sizes, aliens from different worlds, and ships of every design docked in the hangar bays. It was overwhelming, yet there was no fear in its eyes now, only curiosity. Station officials approached, their expressions cautious but polite. They had noticed the child's presence through the sensors and were naturally wary. Elias straightened, speaking confidently. "This is Leary. I found them alone, stranded after an attack. I am their guardian now." Questions followed. Protocols, documents, permissions. But Elias answered each clearly, calmly. He did not lie. But he also did not reveal unnecessary details about the pirate encounter unless asked. The officials exchanged glances, impressed by his composure. The child, meanwhile, stayed close to Elias, glancing up at him occasionally for reassurance. After some discussion, the council approved a temporary arrangement. Leary would stay under Elias's care while permanent arrangements were made. He had expected hesitation or even refusal, but the council seemed moved by the evidence of courage and survival he presented. Later, Elias guided Leary through the outpost corridors. The child's eyes widened at the variety of species and the vibrant colors of different ships and life forms. It was a world unlike anything Leary had known. There was no fear in its expression now, only wonder. Elias allowed a small smile. For the first time since they had left the station, he saw genuine relief and hope on the child's face. They reached a quiet observation deck where the stars stretched endlessly beyond the reinforced glass. Leary stepped forward, pressing a small hand against the surface, gazing at the distant lights of planets and stars. "Big world," it murmured. Elias nodded. "Yes. And there's a place for you here, a place where you can be safe, learn, and grow." Leary turned to him, eyes shining with unshed tears. "Stay. With you." Elias knelt, bringing himself to eye level with the child. "I promised, didn't I?"
"You can stay with me, forever, if you want."
Leary hesitated, then slowly nodded, a faint glow radiating from its skin as though affirming the decision. Elias felt a warmth fill him, part relief, part joy, part something deeper he could not name. Over the next few days, Elias worked with the station officials to make arrangements for Leary. They discussed education, healthcare, and long-term protection. Each conversation reminded him of the gravity of his choice, taking responsibility for a life so small, so fragile, yet so remarkable. Leary's telepathic empathy, its ability to sense emotion and respond, was unusual and rare, making it a subject of scientific curiosity. But Elias kept careful watch, ensuring the child's comfort and consent were never compromised. Leary adapted quickly. It learned to communicate more clearly, expressing simple thoughts and emotions. It explored the outpost cautiously, always returning to Elias's side. The bond between them grew stronger, no longer just necessity, but a profound companionship. The child's past trauma lingered, but Elias's presence was a constant source of reassurance. One afternoon, as the two sat together watching the stars, Leary spoke. "Mother, gone." Sad. Its voice trembled, small tears welling in its eyes. Elias placed a steady hand on its shoulder. "I know, Leary," he said softly. "I can't bring her back, but I can promise something. I will be here, always. You don't have to face anything alone anymore. The child pressed against him, small hands clutching his arm. Its glow pulsed faintly, a rhythm of trust and comfort. For the first time, it allowed itself to feel safe without fear. Elias realized that he had not just saved Leary's life physically, he had saved it emotionally as well. And in doing so, Leary had changed him too, awakening compassion and purpose he had thought long buried. Days turned into weeks. Elias and Leary settled into routines aboard the outpost. Elias repaired his ship, preparing for journeys that would now include the child. Leary learned basic navigation, simple engineering, and even communication protocols, though often through playful mimicry. The child's laughter, soft and musical, filled the cabin in a way Elias had never experienced in years of solitude. Yet, the galaxy remained vast and unpredictable. Pirates still prowled, and danger was never truly gone. But Elias felt different now. He was no longer just a lone pilot drifting through the stars. He was a guardian, a protector, and a human capable of extraordinary courage when it mattered most. One evening, Elias and Leary stood together on the observation deck, watching a distant nebula bloom in shades of red and gold. Leary tilted its head, looking at him with curiosity. "Home?" Elias smiled. "Yes, home, not just here, but with me. Wherever we go, we'll make our home together."
Leary reached out, resting a small hand in his.
"Together," it echoed. The simplicity of the word carried weight, binding them in shared understanding. Elias felt a surge of warmth, realizing that the child's trust had transformed his life. They had faced death, fear, and the cold void of space together, and now they had a future. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "I promise, Leary. Always." The child's glow pulsed brightly, reflecting joy, trust, and newfound hope. It had lost everything once, but now it had a life full of possibility, a guardian who would never abandon it, and a sense of belonging it had never known. As the stars stretched endlessly outside, Elias and Leary remained side by side, looking forward to the future. The universe would always be vast and dangerous, but together they were stronger than any threat. They had discovered something rare and precious: the power of trust, the courage to protect, and the warmth of connection across worlds. And for the first time in years, Elias felt truly at home in the universe.